This is the first in a series of videos that's going to introduce you to Arcane and how to use it. So the first thing to understand about Arcane is that the workflow is sort of split into three phases. The first is going to be spell creation. So spells are the files that represent all the information about a song that you might want to connect to timing control of visuals like lighting, etc. So spell creation is the first phase. The second phase is going to be actually preparing for a show. So you'll be configuring Arcane to work with whatever lighting desk console or VJ software you have. And then the third phase is going to be actually performing for a live show. So we'll go over the first and third phases in a decent amount of detail today. The second phase, preparation, will do a high-level description of, but that will really depend on the specifics of the software that you want to be using or the hardware that you want to be using Arcane with. So there'll be a lot more dedicated videos on preparing. So to start off with, this is the first screen that you'll see when you launch Arcane. So let's have a look at the spell library to begin with. Arcane will show you all of the spells that you've imported on this screen right off the bat. There, when you've got a fresh install of Arcane, there are not going to be any spells. So this will be empty. So let's go ahead and load our first track. So this screen allows you to load audio files directly into Arcane's built-in audio player. For a real show, you're probably going to be using some external audio player, probably some CDJs with timecode output and using TCNet and show control. I'll go over in a later video how you will actually connect Arcane to an external audio source. For today, though, we're going to use the internal audio player. And this is really useful primarily for when you're creating spell files or when you want to be testing spells. So on the screen, you can either load a master audio file or you can load stems. When it comes to creating a new spell, I highly recommend using stems. It allows you to use a bunch of additional features such as tracing and isolating different parts of the song and creating a good starting point for spells that you can then adjust later on. But if you're just testing an existing spell, you can use master audio file. And today, that's what we're going to be looking at. So let's load our first track. So open master audio file. I'm going to load Revolution here. So once I've hit load, it's available to play. So now if we go over to the spell editor, you'll see here that we haven't got any spell loaded because it's a fresh install, there's nothing here. And no spell was found as well that matches the current song. For this example, we're going to assume that maybe someone sent us a spell file for us to use already. So we're going to go and import one. So go import here, go to our list files, and then click on Revolution. So as soon as you've opened a file for importing, you'll be able to see a bunch of metadata. So you'll see the track. You'll be able to see the length, and you'll be able to see the different layers. So this particular spell has 2 percussion layers, 3 melody layers, a bass layer, and some other layer. So we can hit import and open spell. And now the spell file has been imported into our library and loaded into the spell editor. So now I can go ahead and play the track here. And you can see as the track progresses, this strings layer here has a bunch of events, and we can zoom in, lock it to the timeline. And you can see it's progressively getting louder, and the events are, that layer is reacting accordingly. We can skip forward a bit. And then you can see a few other layers interacting. You've got some percussion layers. We've got the bass layer interacting there. And another useful thing, especially when it comes to spell creation, if you want to be really focusing on one particular element of the track, getting it right, you can put a quick loop in place here. It will automatically align to your BPM. You play, and you can see that it is then, once we loop, nice clean loop, so you can focus on defining this. So you could go in, you can move this here, do that. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail into how you can create a spell, all the different features of the spell editor in later videos, but you'll be able to go in and look at how to change the envelope for different events, move things around, repeat things over the BPM, adjust the BPM grid, all of that stuff. So for now, if we go back to the spell library, you can see that this spell that we imported and just had loaded is now available there for us to use. From here, you can also go ahead and export the file and save it so that you can share it with other people and other people can use it. So let's do another example here. So Arcane comes with a couple of built-in spells that you can use if you load the correct track, just so that you can get started in playing and experimenting as quickly as possible. So we'll load one of those right now. So if we go to our tracks here, load this one. And the first thing we'll do is we'll go to the spell library, and we can see that Silverline has already had a spell created and imported for us here. If we then go to the spell editor, you can see here the previous spell that we had loaded into the editor is still there, and it doesn't match the audio file that's actually loaded. So we can quick load correct spell, and now we've loaded the spell that that was just automatically created for us into the editor. We can then go ahead, pick a section, play, and turn this down. So now that we've kind of quickly gone through loading spells and exporting them, let's have a look at how we prepare for a live performance. So when it comes to preparing for your show, you're going to start from the output groups page here within the settings. Output groups are how you define which groups of lights or visuals that you want to control as one unit together. After you've defined all your output groups, you would then go into your DMX or OSC settings to configure connections with the specific software or lighting consoles that you want to control, like Resolume, Touch Designer, Granime, Shamsys, Onyx, etc. And anything that speaks one of these standard protocols like DMX or OSC, you'll be able to control. Importantly, each output that you sort of configure in DMX or OSC will be linked to one specific output group defined on this page here. So you'll be able to control groups of lights and other visuals together. How you configure DMX and OSC, I will go through in later videos. It's very dependent, like I said before, on your exact setup, which software you're using. So we'll have dedicated videos for different setups there. But for now, let's go to what happens in a live performance. So this is the main interface that you'll be using during live performances. As new tracks are loaded by external audio players and timecodes, Arcane will try and match that track to a spell in your library. If you have multiple timecodes, for example, you might have 2 or 4 CDJs, they'll all be available here. Each column is a specific output group that you've configured in that interface that I just showed you. So for example, if I go back now here to the settings, create a new output group, I can name this whatever I want. Name it hello. Go back to the output map. You can see now that there's a third column there available for us to use immediately. And you'd then be able to assign that to whichever OSC or DMX outputs that you like. So to properly demonstrate how this interface is really used, we need some sort of visuals to connect to demo. Arcane has a built-in visualizer. So I'll just go ahead and open that now using the new window button. Any of these pages you can open in a new window. I'll go and close the sidebar. So this built-in visualizer has two different presets. And for both of them, they have 3 parameters that can be linked to different output groups. By default, the visualizer connects to the first 3 output groups that you define. So we'll be able to interact with this interface on the left here to show you how it all works. To begin with, let's have a look at these buttons at the top. So each output group has 3 buttons. It has a blackout, lock to minimum value, and lock to maximum value. And right now, it's going to be on its minimum value, so I can adjust the first parameter here, which is chromatic aberration. And you can see what that looks like. If I lock it to its maximum, I can adjust what the maximum looks like here. So maybe that maximum is a bit too much. I can reduce it down. Same with this one. So this one is a zoom, and this third parameter here is a highlight. So if you want to actually connect each output group to parts in the track, you need to leave all these buttons disabled, but they're there for if you need to just disable things without disconnecting an output group to an element of the song. So let's get to the interesting part now. Let's connect, for the percussion, let's connect the bass drum here to group 2, which is going to be zooming in. We can connect the bass here to group 1, which will be chromatic aberration, and we'll connect this other element here to this third output group. Now, when I play the track, you'll see how the visualizer can respond. There we go. And so you can make decisions to change how everything's connected as the track is playing. I can disconnect this one, for example, connect to here instead. And really, all of the creative is up to you in terms of how you connect different elements. And that's about it for this tutorial. I will follow up with more videos to show more details and go into more depth on how you use different parts of Arcane. You can sign up for the private alpha at arcanewizards.com, and feel free to follow us on Instagram or subscribe to us on YouTube.